Hello and welcome to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Ian Hartitz, and tonight I want to break down the Bengals' 27-17 victory over the Pittsburgh Steelers and go through some just, waiver wire goodness for those of us that are lucky enough to be alive in the fantasy football playoffs with Week 16 now on the horizon. It's been quite the grind to get here. I sincerely hope that all of you that have been listening to this podcast since we debuted back in July have, had plenty of success in your fantasy football leagues. We are not done yet, though. Got one more game, but quickly want to go through the Steelers loss to the Bengals. I'm still so shocked they lost. I just can't even get over it. Want to go over that game quickly before we move on. So thank you so much for listening to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. And without further ado, let's get after it. Yeah. What an unbelievable first half. Just unbelievably bad first half by the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am still just in shock over this performance, and my mind is refusing to believe how bad they played. One of the best in-game graphics I've seen. We've had some legendary ones. The Randy Moss, 3 catches, 163 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys. One that really sticks out. Ben, with 5 minutes left in the second quarter, it was 5 for 13 for -2 yards and an interception. This was an absolutely atrocious performance by the Pittsburgh Steelers offense, really from start to finish. So Bengals were able to build a 17-0 halftime lead, and it was due to a lot of help from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Ben lost a fumble early on. He had 2 drop picks throughout the game. He ended up throwing an interception just directly to a linebacker to help set up a short field. But, hey, we got to give Ryan Finley a little bit of credit. I thought the broadcast was going a little bit too far in what he was able to do out there. But he did find Giovani Bernard for a 14-yard touchdown on a pretty angle route out of the backfield. The type of play that just works all the freaking time in Madden and those old NCAA games alike. So Gio found the end zone twice in the first half, once in that 14-yard angle route, and then again on a 4-yard rush. So, hey, Bengals came out, 17-0 lead. Quickly seemed like that was going to go away because the Steelers, were able to score 10 points in the first 10 minutes of the third quarter, one of which was a 23-yard touchdown from Ben Roethlisberger to Diontae Johnson on the outside. Diontae, great game from him out there. Did not drop a single pass. Incredible. Scholars debate if he will ever drop a pass again. Maybe, but he at least didn't in this game when his fantasy football managers needed him the most. In the third quarter, we actually saw the live money line swing all the way back to the Steelers' side, but was not meant to be. Ryan Finley marched the boys down the field, ended up having a 23-yard touchdown rush. Really was the best part of his game tonight, just his ability to run the ball, which, believe me, is not very high. He took a read option later in the game, tried to get past Minka Fitzpatrick, just was not happening. He is far from a dual-threat quarterback, but it was enough to get the job done tonight. So Pittsburgh, made a late push, was able to get a 1-yard touchdown by Benny Snell, but when it came down to it, last drive of the game, all right, they're saying it could have been a pass interference on a deep ball or Chase Claypool. It probably should have been PI, but with that said, the only reason the last drive kept continuing was because of that phantom PI on Diontae Johnson in the end zone. You can say his hand was around his hip, but I don't know. Sure didn't look like he was just being much of a detriment to him from what I was watching. So I don't know. It's one of these games where, again, Ben, 2 dropped interceptions. Come on, we can't sit here and say, oh, they're one bad missed defensive pass interference call away from winning this one. Bengals deserve to win this one, and even if it was a little bit closer than the 10-point final tally indicated, credit to them for getting their 3rd win of the season. I am so shocked that they even got to win the post-Burrow era with how bad they have looked. And that's also a testament to just how bad Pittsburgh is playing at the moment. So, quickly going through some of these snaps. Ben, 38 attempts, 170 yards, touchdown, and interception. I do my quarterback rankings on Monday, and I had him ranked as the QB 16 going into Week 16 just before this game, based purely on volume. But at this point, I don't even know if we can ride the volume because it's just more and more and more. It's at what point can we just keep going back to the well with this volume? I'm not saying we've ranked him more than a QB2, of the upside variety here in past weeks, but, at some point, we just got to realize that he is playing atrocious football right now. He is not going to be a recommended start in the, fantasy football championship in Week 16. I understand, versus the Colts, we've seen better quarterbacks get it done, but this is a good defense. And again, we just have not seen anything from Ben lately to indicate that, a big time turnaround could be away. So, Matt Ryan, Mitch Trubisky, even, Phillip Rivers probably on the other sideline. Guys, I would be willing to start ahead of Ben Roethlisberger in Week 16 for the fantasy football championship. Benny Snell, night started out a little slow for him, but was able to go out there, got that 1-yard touchdown. Like I mentioned, looked spry a couple of times. Hey, matchup against the Bengals, I get it. The guy isn't going to be a superstar or anything, but at least he dominated this backfield with 18 carries, and he also was able to catch 3 of his 4 targets. So without James Conner in the picture, Benny Snell actually is someone next week. Not an ideal matchup, but It was good to see a Pittsburgh Steelers running back have any level of success with Benny Snell, really emerging as at least the lead, backup to Connor. I think we can get back to treating him as a more confident low-end RB2 for however long Connor is going to remain sidelined. With these wide receivers, you had Diontae, team-high 13 targets. Again, not a single drop. Great job, Diontae. Did catch that 23-yard touchdown down the sideline. Seemed to cramp up at the end of the third quarter, but came back in, which was good to see. I mean, look, he had some missed opportunities as well early on. Ben was seriously just missing these guys left and right. Usually overthrowing them, so could have been a bigger game for him. Chase Claypool, mentioned that probably should have been a DPI at the end of the game, but 3 catches, 54 yards, had a nice 37-yard catch and run just on a short screen. I mean, this dude is electric with the ball in his hands. Wish they would do more to get it to him. Juju Smith-Schuster got blown the F up on a crosser by Von Bell. It was not targeting. He hit him square in the chest and proceeded to fumble the ball. We were looking at some absolutely atrocious situations in fantasy land. I'm sure there were some, just bad finishes where you only needed X amount of points from him because only 3 catches, 15 yards, and as I said, had that fumble. So, Juju, quit freaking dancing on everyone's logos before the game. Maybe the fantasy football and real life football karma gods won't be coming at you this way. It is funny, though, when there is a big hit like this and we end up seeing something challenged with the play. In this case, it was the fumble. And then they just show the replay again and again and again. Adds so much insult to injury. You have to absolutely love it. Eric Ebron also got absolutely teed off on pretty much like never should have been in that position. Ben forced the ball into triple coverage when he had Claypool breaking wide open down the middle of the field. Unfortunately, Ebron missed the rest of the game with a back injury after not catching a single pass. So that's pretty much it from the Pittsburgh side of the ball. And yeah, look, I don't want to take too much away from Cincinnati, but Finley threw the ball 13 freaking times, completed 7 of them for 89 yards and a score. He dropped a nice one down the sideline to AJ Green in the bucket, for a 30-yard gain. Again, he had the 14-yard touchdown to Giovani Bernard on the angle route, but other than that, he looked every bit like the worst quarterback in the league that he was last year among, I think it was like 58 qualified quarterbacks, dead last in PFF passing grade. So look, hey, good for the Bengals for getting a win, and I guess hey, not knocking off the divisional rival Pittsburgh Steelers. But other than Giovani Bernard, who had 25 carries for 83 yards and a touchdown, nobody is going to be a recommended fantasy option next week. And even then, guys, like, come on, we shouldn't be lining up to play really anybody. I'm checking who they are playing next week as I speak, and the Bengals are going to have the Houston Texans. So, hey, that's a reasonable spot for Giovani Bernard, but again, just not seeing nearly enough from the passing game to have any sort of faith in A.J. Green or T. Higgins or Tyler Boyd. Tyler Boyd, unfortunately, is in the concussion protocol. He ran a nice double move, got wide open deep, but Finley badly underthrew him. That was kind of the story of the game on Finley's misses, and he ended up getting banged up once he hit the ground. So hope you are okay, Tyler Boyd. But again, either way, Higgins, Green, Boyd, we just cannot trust these guys with the fantasy football championship on the line. So that is going to do it for that game review. Again, congrats to the Bengals on a 27-17 victory. Before we get on some waiver wire goodness, quick shout out to our sponsors. All first-time depositors at Monkey Knife Fight that put at least $20 in their account while using promo code PFF will receive a free PFF Edge annual subscription. That's a $40 value for just $20, and you'll get the opportunity to turn that $20 into even more money playing daily fantasy and prop games at one of the fastest-growing fantasy sports sites in the USA and Monkey Knife Fight. So go to Monkey Knife Fight, deposit your $20 with promo code PFF today to receive your free PFF Edge annual subscription. All right, everybody, as always with these waiver wires, not every person I'm going to talk about is like someone I'm recommending, but I've just gone through some articles around the industry, and we'll have more up on PFF tomorrow. These are the guys that, everyone's recommending. I want to give my thoughts on them, see if there's someone we should actually be chasing or not. First off, Tony Pollard, if he is out there, he needs to be on your fantasy football team in Week 16. He probably needs to be starting, not just because Tony Pollard is awesome, and he is. Over the past 2 seasons, among every running back with at least 100 carries, Tony Pollard is number 1 in yards after contact per rush attempt. So truly, he's awesome. And, when we see all these comparisons with him and Ezekiel Elliott and how Pollard's been so much better and everything, that's fair, but Tony Pollard's been better than almost every running back in the league and everything over these past 2 years. So a little bit of that is not having the huge volume. I get it. I'm not saying he would keep up these gaudy efficiency numbers if he was getting 300 carries a year, but either way, he's made the most out of his workload, and he does give us that home run hitting ability, and we saw that last week, not having the most consistent success against the 49ers until he did. 40-yard touchdown at the end of the game, broken good 3 tackles along the way, but the biggest thing here is not just the talent, it's the usage. 90% snap rate, 12 carries, 9 targets. Look, the Eagles are not an easy matchup. They have a good chance to dominate this Cowboys offensive line, but that sort of pass game usage and, the lead running back in terms of just early down work, just on top of that, Tony Pollard is going to be a legit top 12 option at the RB position this week against the Eagles. He needs to be in fantasy football lineups. We drafted him as a handcuff to be a potential league winner. It's looking like he might be just that down the stretch. Next up, Salvon Ahmed and Lynn Bowden facing the Las Vegas Raiders. So with Ahmed, his usage last week was great. 60% snaps, 23 carries, 2 targets. We saw Matt Breida down 25%, 13 carries. They wanted to run the ball a lot more with each of Devontae Parker, Jakeem Grant, and Mike Gesicki out. And particularly, Myles Gaskin out led to Ahmed getting the lead role. So Gaskin got placed on the COVID list on December 12th. He should have a legit chance to return this week. If not, Salvon Ahmed is a legit top 24 option with potential for 20 plus carries. I mean, he's not an amazing talent, but hey, they're playing the Raiders, and I think even saying top 20 is probably not giving enough credit. 20 plus touches. I mean, we got to embrace that. He hasn't been bad this year. He hasn't impressed me a ton, but this probably was his best game we saw against the Patriots, actually breaking some tackles and showing some burst and also a little bit of ability in the pass game. So I'm going to even say, top 15. I do my rankings Wednesday morning, so don't shoot me if, I change my mind before then. But either way, I do think Ahmed's going to be a viable fantasy starter as long as Myles Gaskin remains sidelined. If Gaskin comes back, it's going to be a situation to probably avoid with a likely committee on the horizon. If we wanted to throw a dart at anybody, it would be Gaskin. With Lynn Bowden. So, look, having Gesicki, having Devontae, having Jakeem Grant out again would certainly put Bowden in that recommended start pool. He does still have a higher floor, I think, even if only some of these guys come back. The concern last week was if Gesicki came back because we were seeing Bowden only work out of the slot. Last week, though, season high 24 snaps out wide. It was on the field for 90% snaps in the game. And hey, he has, 16 total targets over the past 2 weeks, and he's done a pretty good job catching 13 of them for, 109 yards. So 7 rush attempts on the season. They can throw the ball, wildcat formation. They like getting this guy the ball. They don't still have, the most perfect plan for him, but hey, they give him the ball. He had a wild play. We were running across the field, breaking some tackles after kind of, a trick play pass. Wasn't exactly going their way. So Lynn Bowden seems like a good player. We're talking about some of these wide receivers, him, Rashard Higgins, Darnell Mooney. They're solid enough guys that, if you see them out there on the waiver wire, you can pick them up, slide them in as, your flex option, your desperate flex option, maybe in some of these deeper leagues, but not necessarily people that we need to be, force feeding getting into that fantasy football lineup. Someone that we do need to do that for is Jalen Hurst. We told you on this podcast just the difference making that his rushing brings to the table. But look, now he is locked in as a legit top 5 fantasy football QB with demonstrated passing upside to go along with this ridiculously fantasy friendly rushing role. So hey, we knew this was the week to start Jalen Hurts. Cowboys league worst defense in yards before contact per carry. That's only going to enhance the best part about Hurts' game. But look, last week it wasn't the most ridiculous passing highlight reel in terms of just tight window passes, but man, when you look at the options he's really throwing to, Alshon Jeffrey, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. Goddard's a stud, but Jalen Reagor, he got hurt. Greg Ward, hey, he's making plays out there. I'm Patrick Peterson. It's wild to see, but this is a guy that was out of the league as recently as a couple years ago. So, not too many options out there to really separate from Hurts, and we still saw him giving his guys a chance, and that's all we need. He had 2 passes to Dallas Goedert before their final drive that, he gave the guy a chance to catch the ball and potentially give them the, game-tying touchdown. So, Jalen Hurts, he has that passing upside that we just simply didn't know he had. It didn't really matter for fantasy purposes, like he was going to be a QB1 regardless in this matchup, but now that we add that true passing upside to it, guys, Jalen Hurts this week is my QB, let's see, pulling it up, he is my QB4 on the week. The only guys I'm starting ahead of Jalen Hurts are Kyler Murray, Aaron Rodgers, and Patrick Mahomes. Wild that we got to this point, but truly hope you grab Jalen Hurts. He is turning out to be a fantasy football superstar right when it matters most. We got the Bears facing the Jaguars, which means Mitch Trubisky and Darnell Mooney are viable fantasy options. So Trubisky has been a true boomer bust quarterback this year. In his starts, he has produced QB7, QB24, QB9, QB23, QB4, most recently QB25 performances. So, it's games that he hasn't been benched in, so he has another dud you can throw along with it. But hey, the Jaguars, this is a prime matchup where even if David Montgomery takes over, it should be, an efficient enough game where Mitch can make the most out of his opportunities. So Jaguars have been so bad. 31st in fantasy points per game to QB, 8th against wide receivers. That's where Mooney comes in as well. And hey, give the Bears, a little bit of credit on offense. Talked about this on the Monday pod, where I was going through every game from Sunday. But since Trubisky came back under center, they've scored 25, 30, 36, and most recently 33 points. So I get it. Packers, Lions, Texans, Vikings, not exactly the most loaded schedule they've been facing in that, NFC North. But hey, Jacksonville Jaguars, not like that problem is exactly going away this week. So continue to go the well with some of these Bears offensive pieces. Rashard Higgins and Baker Mayfield versus the Jets. We're just attacking these matchups, everyone. I told you last week on the waiver wire pod to look ahead to this because these are the guys that, are now on the top of the waiver wire list. So Baker, just what he's done the last 4 weeks has been wild. Fantasy QB 10, QB 3, and he was a QB 12 pre-Monday Night Football. Don't think that's going anywhere. Look, the Browns only asked Baker to throw the ball more than 30 times, twice in weeks 1 through 12 combined. That's happened in 3 consecutive games. The whole problem in Cleveland, just like it is in Minnesota with Kirk Cousins, is volume. Now, we weren't seeing Baker Mayfield display the sort of high-end efficiency that he has been for the last month, really since the weather stopped being bad in Cleveland. But now he has that. So we're looking at a legit borderline QB1 in Baker Mayfield, just like Kirk Cousins has been the entire year. So that means that Rashard Higgins is also starting to get boomer bust wide receiver 3 value. Hey, since those awful rain games, we had a 1 catch, 15-yard dud, but then 6 catches, 95 yards in the score, 6 catches, 89 yards in the score. Most recently, 4 catches, 76 yards, average of 6.5 targets per game. Again, viable wide receiver 3 if you need them. Before we get to the last few guys, quick shout out to a sponsor. Subscribe to PFF's Elite Annual Subscription using promo code ACTION to receive a year of Elite subscription access and 1 year of Action Pro subscription access for just $199.99. That's $199 and just 99 cents. Action Pro is Action Network's premium subscription offering tailor-made tools to make avid and new bettors better. This is a limited time offer that is currently only made available now through the Super Bowl. This offer also only applies to first-time Elite Annual subscribers. Just a few more waiver wires to go through. Thank you as always for listening to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. So look, Jeff Wilson against the Cardinals this week, not the same smash spot we had against the Cowboys. I don't think we need to necessarily jam these 49ers running backs into our lineups, but hey, if Mostert's going to be out with this ankle injury, we can trust Wilson as the RB1 in San Francisco, at least to some extent. Tevin Coleman's still there, Jerick McKinnon's still there, but hey, if Mostert's back, we got to actually feel better about him. So last week, it was pretty much put both these guys in the lineup, but that's not how it worked out. You look at the total snaps and the total numbers, and okay, Mostert and Wilson were actually like 50-50 again, but just in the first half, it was Mostert at 24 snaps, Wilson had 11, Jerick McKinnon only 3. So truly, it's the Raheem Mostert show. If he's healthy, we'll see how this ankle injury pans out. If he's not, then Jeff Wilson becomes the low-end RB2. But again, not the same overall matchup smash spot we saw last week against the Cowboys. Falcons slot receiver Russell Gage facing the Chiefs. Look, he's accounted for a touchdown in 3 straight games. This dude has a cannon on him, and he's not a bad slot receiver in his own right. But look, Chiefs, 5th best defense in yards per attempt allowed this slot and explosive pass play rate. Not something we should actively be attacking. But, if Julio comes back, I almost feel better about Gage just because, okay, Matt Ryan was good last week without Julio, but that was pretty much the first game all season without their all-world wideout that we've seen Ryan, maintain some level of fantasy upside. So, Gage, Higgins, Mooney, I understand these guys aren't ideal. I would say out of the group, I feel best about targeting, I would say Lynn Bowden if, these Dolphins wide receivers remain out. If they come back, I would say Rashard Higgins with the way Baker's just balling. I think the Jets are going to kind of force them to pass more than people might think. Then I go Mooney, and then in last place would probably be Russell Gage. So I'm just not quite buying this latest resurgence. There were plenty of games in the middle of the year where Julio was out and we didn't see Gage do much. I think he's had a nice little stretch, but don't necessarily think this Chiefs game is the matchup we should actively be targeting. And last but not least, we have Le'Veon Bell against the Falcons. So it looks like Clyde Edwards-Helaire will be missing the remainder of the regular season with those ankle and groin injuries. So Le'Veon seemed to get banged up at the end of the game as well on a horse collar. Tentatively think he is okay. So look, we did have one game this year when Clyde was active, but active only for emergency only. In that game, Le'Veon Bell, 52% snaps, 11 carries, 3 targets. Darrell Williams, 48% snaps, 6 carries, 2 targets. So Darrell is like their 2-minute back that's going to be out there. He's kind of like a Malcolm Brown guy where he racks up the high snaps. They trust him, but he's not necessarily going to be, competing for the touches. And that's what we did see last week as well. Le'Veon, 15 carries and 1 target, and Darrell had just 3 carries and 0 targets. So, we can start Le'Veon with a little more confidence than we had with Fournette last week. Like, even though Le'Veon hasn't been killing it, he's been active. He's been the outright RB2 in one game without Clyde. We saw him step up. So, dream matchup against the Falcons. Make sure that, Mahomes and company aren't going to be resting. I haven't exactly looked at the playoff scenarios, but, if it's not this week, it's certainly going to be week 17 where they don't really have to worry about the playoffs much longer. Keep an eye on that. But Mahomes and company are going at these Falcons. Le'Veon Bell is going to be a top 16 option at the position thanks to this sort of, 15-plus touch workload and the league's single best offense. That's going to do it, everybody. Thank you as always for listening to PFF Fantasy Football Podcast. I hope you all have a great holiday season. We'll not be having a Friday edition of this podcast, but make sure you check out PFF.com for all the info on injuries that we usually provide you for there. So thank you as always for tuning in. We will be back Wednesday with a game-by-game preview of Week 16, and then also Thursday with Roto-World's Pat Daugherty going through 10 questions. So I'm Ian Hartitz. Thank you as always for tuning in. Until next time, take care, everybody.